Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm showing you guys my Fluffle deck profile. This is one of my favorite decks, but without saying too much, let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Starting off, of course, we run 3 copies of Fluffle Dog. Fluffle Dog is the kind of like the Stratos of the deck, being able to, on normal summon or special summon, search for a Fluffle or a Edge Sabers. You can only use that effect once per turn, but it's still a really good card. Continuing on, we do run 3 copies of Fluffle Penguin. Fluffle Penguin just says that when this card is normal or special summoned, you can then special summon 1 Fluffle monster from your hand. Also, this card has another effect that says if this card is used for a fusion material to summon a Frightfur monster, you can draw 2 cards and then discard 1 card. So that effect is really powerful. Continuing on, we do run 2 copies of Fluffle Bear. Fluffle Bear just has the effect of you can discard this card from hand to then set a toy vendor from your deck directly to the field. Then we have Fluffle Wings that says that while this card is in the graveyard, you can banish this card and 1 Fluffle monster to draw 1 card, then destroy 1 toy vendor you control, draw another card. So with the effect of toy vendor being able to search for another card, it's just a really powerful card, and we must run this card in the deck. To wrap up the Fluffles, we do run 1 copy of Fluffle Dolphin. Fluffle Dolphin just has the effect of if this card is normal summoned, you can then set Toy Vendor from your graveyard to your field. 1 Fluffle Owl, this card just searches polymerization, or you can pay 500 life points to fusion summon on the field. Then we do run 1 copy of Fluffle Sheep. Fluffle Sheep just has the effect of if you control a Fluffle monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And it also has a second effect of you can return 1 other Fluffle monster you control to the hand, then you can special summon 1 Edge monster from your hand or graveyard. You can only use each effect once per turn. So that's it for the Fluffles. Let's go ahead and move on into the Edge Imps. Continuing on, we do run 1 copy of Edge Imp Sabers. Edge Imp Sabers is the main card that we use for the fusions. Its effect practically just says that while this card is in the graveyard, you can return 1 card from your hand to the top of the deck to then special summon this card from the graveyard. Pretty good effect. Comes up actually very often, especially with a combo that I'll show you guys later. Continuing on, we do run 3 copies of Edge Imp Chain. Edge Imp Chain has 2 effects. The first effect that doesn't come up that often is that if this card attacks, you can special summon 1 Edge Imp Chain from your deck. Then there's also the second effect, which is the effect that we use, that if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can then search for a Frightfur card. Then to wrap up the Edge Imps, we do run 2 copies of Edge Imp Scythe. Edge Imp Scythe is practically just a polymerization that you can use on your opponent's turn by using this card as a fusion material and full of monsters in your hand and field as material. Continuing on, we do run 1 copy of Artifact Scythe because in this deck we can easily Scythe Walk our opponent. So I will show you guys a bit of what this deck can do later on. Continuing on, we do run 1 copy of Frightfur Meister. Frightfur Meister has a really good effect in its pendulum effect, being that you contribute 1 Fluffle or Edge Imp monster on the field to special summon a Fiend monster from your deck with the same level but different name. Which, in this case, we actually do use our Edge Imp Sabers. We tribute the Edge Imp Sabers to special summon Lilith, Lady of Lament. Lilith, Lady of Lament has the effect of you contribute 1 dark monster on your field to then search for, reveal 3 normal trap cards from your deck. Your opponent picks 1 randomly and adds it to your hand. So for that, we do run 3 copies of Necro Fusion. This is the main card we use to activate, or correction, to use our Artifact Scythe effect on our opponent's turn, as well as board wipe our opponent. Continuing on, we run 3 copies of Toy Vendor. Toy Vendor has 2 effects. The first effect is that once per turn you can discard 1 card, and then you can draw 1 card, reveal it to your opponent, and if that card is a Fluffle monster, you can special summon any monster from your hand. Doesn't have to be a Fluffle. Or it has, or if it's not a Fluffle monster, you must discard that card. Its second effect, which is actually the main effect that we used it for, it has the effect of if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can search for 1 Fluffle or Edge Imp Sabers and add it from your deck to your hand. which is really powerful just to be able to kind of act like a Rhoda when it's sent to the graveyard by cards like Foolish Burial Goods. Foolish Burial Goods just says send one spell or trap card from your deck to the graveyard. So, of course, as we just said, we would send Toy Vendor, then Toy Vendor's effect would get us a search. Both effects of Toy Vendor are not once per turn. Like, the first effect is once per turn, but not hard once per turn. The second effect is not once per turn at all. Continuing on, we do run 3 copies of Frightfur Patchwork. Frightfur Patchwork has the amazing effect of you can search for 1 Edgent monster and 1 Polymerization. This card is the only card that can search your Edgent chain, which was the main downfall of this deck before we finally got Patchwork. But you can only use this card once per turn. Continuing on to the fusion cards, we do run 3 copies of Polymerization. Of course, Polymerization just fuses from hand and field. And then we do run 1 copy of Frightfur Fusion. Frightfur Fusion says that it can fusion summon a Frightfur monster using monsters in your graveyard as materials by banishing them instead. So to wrap up the main deck, we do also run 1 copy of Called by the Grave to kind of stop our opponent from hand trapping us. And then we also run 1 copy of Foolish Burial just to be able to send our wings to the graveyard or just put more Fluffles in the graveyard. So that way we can have a bigger effect with our Necrofusion. Or we could also use it to send Sabers if we don't have Sabers in grave already. Continuing on to the extra deck, we of course run 2 copies of Frightfur Sabertooth. Frightfur Sabertooth's requirements is that you must fusion summon it with a Frightfur Fusion monster and 1 or more Fluffle or Edge-Imp monsters. This card has 3 effects, so let's go ahead and jump on into those effects. The first effect is when this card is fusion summoned, you can then target 1 Frightfur monster in your graveyard, special summon it. The second effect is all Frightfur monsters on the field gain 400 attack points. Then the third effect says that if this card was fusion summoned by using 3 or more materials, this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Continuing on, we do run 2 copies of Frightfur Kraken. Frightfur Kraken has the effect of once per turn you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, destroy it. However, this card cannot attack the turn you activate the effect. And the other effect of it is that this card can attack twice. So practically you're given the option between attacking or destroying a monster by card effects. However, pairing Kraken with Sabertooth, you can activate the effect of Kraken, fusion summon it into Sabertooth, summon back Kraken. Kraken doesn't remember that it uses its effect, and it can attack twice. Continuing on, we do run 2 copies of Frightfur Tiger. Frightfur Tiger's fusion material cost is 1 Edge-Imp Sabers and 1 or more Fluffle monsters. This card has the effect of when this card is fusion summoned, you can target cards up to on the field up to the number of fusion materials used for the fusion summon of this monster, destroy those cards. It also has the effect of all Frightfur monsters you control gain 300 attack for each Fluffle and Frightfur monster you control. You can only control 1 Frightfur Tiger, though, which, you're pretty much only going to have 1 on the field at a time, but still, that is a really powerful effect. Continuing on, we do run 1 copy of Frightfur Wolf. Frightfur Wolf has the requirements of 1 Edge-Imp Sabers and 1 or more Fluffle monsters. This card's effect is literally just that it can attack each amount of times in the battle phase up to the number of monsters used for the fusion summon of this card. So if you use 3, you can attack 3 times, 4 you can attack 4 times, and so on and so forth. And to wrap it up, we do run 1 copy of Frightfur Cruel Whale. Cruel Whale's effect is 1 Edge-Imp monster. The requirements to summon it is 1 Edge-Imp monster and 1 Fluffle monster. However, the effect of this card is pretty much just used to activate your copy of Artifact Scythe, because it says you can target 1 card on each player's side of the field and destroy it. Really, the main use of this card is just to use Edge-Imp Scythe to go into this card to pop Artifact Scythe. Moving on to the Link monsters, we run 1 copy of Cross Sheep. Cross Sheep has the amazing effect, for us at least, that whenever a fusion monster is summoned to a zone that this card points to, you can then special summon 1 level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard. Then, of course, we run 1 copy of Artifact Dagda. Dagda just says that whenever a card effect is activated while this card is on the field, you can then set 1 Artifact monster, and that card, of course, being Artifact Scythe. Then we run 1 copy of Black Lizard Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. only for the fact of this card can banish cards, like banish a card on your opponent's field. It can gain attack, or it can attack twice, which is really amazing, just to be able to kind of set up a big body on fields that makes it hard for your opponent to get over it. Continuing on, we do, of course, run one copy of Appaloosa just for effect negations, and then we do run one copy of Access Code, just so that way we can try to close out games if we couldn't already with the fusion monsters. Then to wrap up the extra deck, we do run two of these monsters. We run number 38, Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy. This card is really good. It's just a spell negation. However, it also has a lightning rod effect where if your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can attach a material from this card. That monster now has to attack Titanic Galaxy. Then we run one copy of Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder, just so that we can help clear out the opponent's board. However, it also clears out your board as well. Alright guys, real quickly I'm going to show you guys just a quick explanation on how to use the Frightfur Meister in the deck. So practically you have to have Edgem Sabers in grave. It doesn't matter how it gets there as long as it's there. And then you want to be able to have either Chain to be able to send to grave, whether that be off Toy Vendor, or however. The best way is Frightfur Patchwork, but with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. We'll just go ahead and show Patchwork because it is the easiest method. So practically what you do is you activate Frightfur Patchwork to be able to search your Edgem Chain and your Polymerization. This also being taken into account that you do have any Fluffle in hand. It doesn't really matter, but that is one of the requirements, just to be able to fuse. Or if you just wanted to, if you had Toy Vendor on field, just use the Chain. But we're going to go ahead and activate Polymerization to fuse the Dog and Chain into Frightfur Kraken. Frightfur Kraken does really nothing. However, the effect of Chain will now activate to be able to get Frightfur Meister. Frightfur Meister you will then activate in the Pendulum Scale. The effect of Frightfur Meister, of course, will then now come into play where you take one card from your hand, put it back on top of the deck to special summon this. Then you will use Frightfur Meister effect to tribute the Edgem Sabers. I do realize that I said Frightfur Meister's effect. You use Saber's effect to summon itself back out. Then Meister's effect to tribute it to special summon your copy of Lilith. Then you will use Lilith effect to tribute itself to reveal 3 copies of Necrofusion. So your opponent would randomly pick one, then you would set it. Then on your opponent's turn, you would activate Necrofusion by banishing your Sabers and your Dog to be able to go into your copy of Frightfur Tiger to be able to pop 2 cards on the field. Primarily, what you would want to have is, of course, Artifact Scythe, which would be in part of combos. I do want to get some dual videos with this so that I can show you guys how this deck works and its full potential. But practically, you can pop your Artifact Scythe as well as a card your opponent controls. Or if you had more Fluffles in grave, you can banish more to pop more with Tiger. But really, guys, that's going to be about it for the video. Please be sure to leave a like, comment down below what you guys think of the deck profile, as well as if you really enjoyed the video and want to see even more of my content, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell. But with that being said, see ya!